They say you're doing well. They look at your life, your smile, your polished routines, and they applaud. But what they don't see is the storm behind your eyes, the tightness in your chest, the constant need to keep everything perfect just so nothing falls apart. You've become so good at wearing the mask that even you've started to believe it's your real face. You tell yourself, "I'm fine," and maybe sometimes you even are. But late at night, when the world is silent and the mask slips, the truth comes through in the form of a question that never really goes away. Is this really who I am? You're not alone in this. So many people are trapped, not in cells with bars, but in cages built with smiles, routines, and silent expectations. Cages made of everything they thought they were supposed to want. A job that looks good on paper. A relationship that fits the timeline. A house that echoes with emptiness. And every time you try to express even the smallest discomfort, there's a voice inside that whispers, "Be grateful. Don't complain. People would kill to have your life." So you stay quiet, you stay in character, you perform. And slowly, almost beautifully, you build your own prison. One small compromise at a time. You say yes when you want to say no. You smile when you want to cry. You nod when you want to scream. You keep peace in places that only offer you war, and with every act of self-betrayal, another brick is laid in the walls that now surround you. The most dangerous cages are the ones we decorate, the ones we make cozy with stability and predictability, the ones that look safe from the outside but feel hollow on the inside. That's the beautiful cage, the one that gives you just enough comfort to stop you from leaving, just enough applause to keep performing, just enough love to keep you hoping. But never enough truth to make you feel alive. You might not even realize how long you've been trapped. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, like erosion. You wake up one day and realize that your laughter feels rehearsed, that your dreams feel distant, that your voice, your true voice, hasn't been heard in years, not even by you. And when someone asks what you want, really want, your mind goes blank, because you haven't thought about that in a long time. You've been too busy being who they need you to be. And that's the tragedy. You became everything to everyone but forgot how to be something to yourself. You lost sight of the person you were before the world told you who to be. The child who used to dream wildly, speak honestly, and feel deeply. That child still lives in you, somewhere buried under the layers of expectation, fear, and responsibility. And sometimes, just sometimes, you catch a glimpse of them in the mirror. A flash of innocence, a moment of rawness, a whisper of the self you abandoned to fit in. But here's the thing about cages. No matter how golden they look, they are still cages. And no matter how long you've lived in one, freedom is still possible. But first, you have to acknowledge the bars. You have to see that what's holding you back is not failure or bad luck or a lack of talent. What's holding you back is the fear of what will happen if you stop pretending. If you stop performing, if you let go. And yes, letting go is terrifying. Because for so long, control has been your shield. People-pleasing has been your strategy. Perfection has been your protection. You've built a life around being what others need, and the thought of breaking that illusion feels like setting fire to everything you've built. But ask yourself, what kind of life is it if you're not truly living it? You weren't born to be pleasing. You weren't created to be perfect. You were born to be real, messy, beautiful, flawed, honest, alive. And real life, it begins the moment you stop worrying about the act. The moment you stop playing roles in stories that don't belong to you. The moment you realize that being liked isn't the same as being loved, and that being accepted by everyone often means being true to no one, especially yourself. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. Stepping out of the cage requires courage. It requires looking at the life you've built and asking, was this ever mine, or did I just inherit it from the voices around me? It requires unlearning the need for approval, the addiction to control, the obsession with being seen in a certain way. But what you find on the other side, it's worth every step. You find peace, not the kind that's silent, but the kind that sings. You find joy, not the loud kind, but the quiet, steady joy of being exactly who you are. You find freedom, not from rules, but from roles. from the weight of pretending, from the pressure to perform. And most of all, you find yourself, maybe for the first time. So the question now is not, are you trapped? You already know the answer to that. The real question is, are you ready to be free? Are you ready to leave the beautiful cage, even if it means stepping into the unknown? Even if it means disappointing some people? Even if it means losing what was never truly yours to begin with? Because on the other side of fear is truth, and on the other side of truth is a life you can finally call your own. They taught you that control is power, that if you plan everything just right, if you manage every detail of your life, then nothing can go wrong. You believed it. You built schedules, set goals, chased perfection. You micromanaged your time, your image, even your emotions. You told yourself it was discipline. You told yourself it was strength. But deep down, a quiet truth kept whispering beneath all that structure. You don't feel safe, you feel exhausted. Because control isn't peace, it's a performance. And the longer you hold on to it, the more you begin to realize that it's slipping through your fingers like sand. You can plan your days down to the minute. You can rehearse your words before every conversation. You can calculate every risk and dress every wound in logic. But life doesn't care about your plans. Life doesn't ask for permission. And the more you try to control it, the more chaotic it feels. You weren't taught how to flow. You were taught how to resist, how to fight discomfort, how to wrestle uncertainty into something predictable. But unpredictability isn't the enemy, it's the nature of life. And when you start trying to fight life itself, you will always lose. Not because you're weak, but because you're using the wrong tools. Here's the truth they never told you: control is not safety. It's a shield that gets heavier every day. You try to control relationships so you don't get hurt. You try to control your image so you're not misunderstood. You try to control your environment so nothing surprises you. But in doing all that, you're not living, you're managing. You're not expressing, you're editing. You're not connecting, you're performing. And what's even worse is that you start believing the lie that if something goes wrong, it's your fault. That if you just tried harder, planned better, worried more, then maybe it wouldn't have happened. That's how the trap works. It convinces you that you're in control of everything. So when something slips, you blame yourself, instead of seeing the truth: you were never supposed to control it all. There's a moment that comes quietly. It might be in the middle of the night, or while you're brushing your teeth, or sitting at a traffic light. It's a moment when you realize that all your control hasn't brought you peace, it's brought you fear. Because now, you're not just afraid of what could happen. You're afraid of what will happen if you lose control. You're afraid that if you let go, everything will fall apart. But what if it's already falling apart under the pressure of your grip? There's a paradox hidden in plain sight. The tighter you hold on, the more everything slips away. You can't control how others feel about you. You can't control the outcome of every plan. You can't control how life will unfold. But you can control something deeper, something quieter, something far more powerful: your response, your energy, your presence, your authenticity. But to tap into that, you have to let go of the illusion. You have to stop playing the game of control. You have to be brave enough to trust that not everything needs your hands on it to work. That not every moment needs to be managed. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is release. It's not about giving up. It's not about being careless. It's about shifting from force to flow, from fear to faith. It's about understanding that surrender is not weakness, it's wisdom. Think about the most beautiful moments in your life, the ones that left you speechless, the ones that cracked your heart open. Were they planned? Were they controlled? Or did they come when you least expected them? When you were present, unguarded, and free. Real life doesn't happen in your comfort zone. It doesn't live inside your spreadsheets or your checklists. It lives in the raw, unpredictable space where things aren't perfect, but they're real. And if you spend your life trying to control every part of your story, you might miss the plot altogether. There's a reason anxiety rises when control becomes your only strategy. Because you're swimming against the current. You're trying to fight the river instead of learning how to move with it. And in that constant battle, you lose your strength, you lose your joy, you lose the chance to just be. When you let go of control, you open the door to something incredible. You open the door to presence, to clarity, to freedom. You make space for miracles, tiny ones and massive ones. You make room for people who love the real you, not the one you curated. You make room for a life that surprises you in the best ways. But the first step is terrifying, because letting go means trusting. Trusting that you're enough without managing everything. Trusting that you can handle uncertainty. Trusting that you can survive not being perfect. And trust doesn't come from confidence. It comes from courage. It comes from stepping into the unknown and saying, even if I don't have control, I choose to live. You've spent so long trying to get everything right. But what if you didn't need to? What if your peace didn't depend on how much you controlled, but how much you allowed? What if the version of you that you're holding back is the one that's finally ready to be set free? But because here's the truth, control isn't the answer. It's the question that's been keeping you stuck. And the answer, it's in your breath, in your surrender, in your willingness to let life surprise you. Let go. Not because it's easy, but because holding on is slowly breaking you. And freedom is worth the risk. There comes a moment in your life when everything seems to be in place. The job is stable. The routine is predictable. The social circle is active. From the outside, it looks like you've made it. You smile in pictures. You laugh at the right times. You say all the right things. But inside, where the world doesn't see, you feel something missing, something hollow, something distant, like you're living someone else's life in your own body. You don't talk about it, not because you don't want to, but because you don't know how to explain a feeling that has no shape. It's not sadness, it's not depression, it's more like emptiness, a quiet ache that follows you from morning to night, an invisible weight that even sleep can't shake. You look in the mirror and see a face that's familiar, but not entirely yours, like someone's edited your reflection and left only the version of you the world wants to see. That version smiles on command, performs perfectly, makes people comfortable. That version fits in every room but belongs in none. That version has learned to keep dreams locked away in drawers marked someday. That version is you, but only on the surface. Underneath it all, you know something's gone missing. You try to distract yourself, with work, with people, with screens, with noise. You scroll for hours hoping that anything will make you feel something real. But all you find are more reminders that the person you once were is drifting further away. That the voice inside you, the one that used to be loud, raw, passionate, is now a whisper. Where did it go? When did you lose it? You start tracing the steps backward. Maybe it was when you stopped drawing. Maybe it was when you changed your major to something more practical. Maybe it was the relationship that made you shrink a little smaller to be loved. Maybe it was when you stopped speaking your mind because it made others uncomfortable. You didn't notice it then, because the changes were small. A compromise here, a silence there, a smile you didn't mean, a yes when your soul begged you to say no. You kept telling yourself, it's just for now, but now became years, and years became a life, and now, you're here, staring at yourself, wondering who this person is, wondering how you became a version of you that feels so far from home. This is the cost of living for everyone but yourself. You learn to be what people need. You become the friend who's always there, the partner who never complains, the child who never disappoints, the employee who never says no. And in the process, you bury your own needs so deep that even you forget where you left them. But the soul doesn't forget. It remembers. It always remembers. It remembers the music that made you feel alive. It remembers the stories you wanted to write, the places you dreamed of seeing, the person you imagined becoming. The child inside you, the one who was fearless, curious, and full of light, still exists. They're just waiting for you to come back. And that's the painful part. Because once you realize how far you've drifted, you start to feel guilt, shame, regret. You ask yourself, why did I let this happen? But that question doesn't serve you. Because the truth is you were trying to survive. You were doing what you thought you had to do, to belong, to be loved, to be safe. You don't need to punish yourself for the ways you've adapted. You just need to remember that adapting is not the same as becoming. You were never meant to stay hidden forever. The world taught you that being real is risky, that being sensitive is weakness, that being different is dangerous. So you hid the parts of yourself that didn't fit. You silenced the voice that spoke too loudly. You dulled the colors that were too bright. But you can only pretend for so long. Sooner or later, the weight of who you're not starts crushing who you are. You don't need more motivation. You don't need another productivity hack. What you need is permission. Permission to come home to yourself. To stop asking the world who you should be. And start asking yourself who you want to become. And maybe you don't know the answer right now. Maybe you're scared that what's left of you isn't enough. But what if I told you that your essence, the real you, is not gone? It's just been waiting. Waiting for you to stop performing. Waiting for you to stop pleasing. Waiting for you to listen. You don't have to make a dramatic change overnight. You don't have to walk away from everything. You just have to start remembering, reconnecting, reclaiming. Start small. Say no when you mean no. Say yes when it feels right. Create something just because it brings you joy. Rest without guilt. Speak without rehearsing. Cry without apologizing. Laugh without holding back. Ask yourself what you need. And then give it to yourself without shame. It's not selfish. It's sacred. You are allowed to take up space in your own life. You are allowed to change your mind. To change direction. To change everything. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are just waking up. And waking up means realizing that you've been asleep for a long time. It means feeling the ache of everything you've abandoned. It means grieving the time you've lost. But it also means this: you're still here. And as long as you are here, it's not too late to begin again. The path back to yourself is not easy. It's not comfortable. But it's honest. And honesty is where healing begins. So the next time you feel that emptiness, that ache, that quiet sadness, don't run from it. Don't numb it. Sit with it. Listen to it. Because that emptiness is not a void. It's an invitation. A call to return. A call to remember. A call to rise. This is not the end of your story. This is the chapter where you start to live it. Fully, fiercely, and freely. You've been taught that success is the goal. That it's the final destination. That once you reach it, everything will make sense. The stress, the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, it'll all be worth it. So you chase it. Every day, you run faster, work harder, smile wider. You sacrifice more and more pieces of yourself on the altar of what they call achievement. But here's a question no one ever stopped to ask you. Whose definition of success are you chasing? Because somewhere along the way, success stopped being about fulfillment and started being about performance. It became a checklist, a title, a salary, a house with the right square footage in the right neighborhood, with the right furniture that you barely even use. It became a life that looks good in photos, but feels empty in your chest. A life curated for others, not created for yourself. You were told that success would bring happiness, that if you followed the rules, played the game, and won, you'd finally feel whole. But the truth is, you climbed the ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. You reached the top and looked around, not with pride, but with confusion, with a question that echoed in your soul. Why doesn't this feel like enough? You did everything right. You studied what they said was safe. You worked in the field they said was stable. You pursued relationships that made sense on paper. You built a life that others admired. But inside, there's a silent scream. A restless feeling that whispers, "This isn't it. This isn't me." And yet you hesitate to say it out loud. Because who are you to complain when you have what so many dream of? Who are you to say you're not happy when your life looks successful? But that's the illusion. Success, as you've been taught, is a costume, and you're the actor wearing it. The applause is loud. The spotlight is blinding. But when the curtains close, you're left alone with yourself, and that's where the truth lives. Real success is not how the world sees you. It's how you see yourself when no one's watching. It's not about the car you drive, or the title on your business card. It's not about how many followers you have, or how busy your calendar is. It's about whether you can breathe deeply when you wake up in the morning. Whether your heart feels light when you walk through the door of your own home. Whether you feel like you belong in your own life. Because success without peace is just noise. Success without purpose is just pressure. And success without self is just performance. You've been conditioned to measure your worth by how much you achieve. But worth isn't earned. It's remembered. You were born enough, but the world convinced you otherwise. And now you've been trying to prove something that was never in question. The illusion of success is powerful. It's addictive. It keeps you busy, distracted, focused on the next milestone, the next goal, the next fix of external validation. But what happens when the applause fades? What happens when the achievement doesn't heal the ache inside? What happens when you've done everything right, and it still feels wrong? You start to realize that chasing success the way you were told isn't freedom. It's a trap. It's a game you can't win, because the rules keep changing. The bar keeps moving. The more you achieve, the more they expect, and the more they expect, the less space you have to breathe. True success cannot be measured by the metrics of a society that rewards burnout and glorifies overwork. It's measured by alignment, by how close your life reflects your values, your passions, your truth, by how honest you can be with others, and most importantly with yourself. But here's the hard part. Letting go of the illusion means letting go of the approval it gave you. It means walking away from things that brought you recognition but not joy. It means disappointing others to finally stop disappointing yourself. It means risking the comfort of what's familiar for the possibility of what's real. And that's terrifying, because you've built your identity around being successful in their eyes. You've spent years becoming who they told you to be. And now, to admit that it's not working, that it never really fit, feels like starting over. But starting over doesn't mean failure. It means freedom. It means you finally stop running and start listening. It means you turn down the volume of the world and tune into the sound of your soul. It means you stop asking, "What do they want from me?" and start asking, "What do I want from me?" Because the moment you stop chasing their version of success is the moment you start creating your own. And that version might not look impressive on a resume. It might not be featured in magazines. It might not get you a standing ovation. But it will feel like home. It will feel like truth. It will feel like peace. Imagine a life where you don't need to prove anything. A life where you wake up excited, not exhausted. A life where your success is not what you show the world, but what you feel within. That's the life you deserve. That's the life you can build. But first, you must be brave enough to ask the question, is the life I'm living really mine? And if the answer is no, that's not the end. It's the beginning. There's a word that feels cold at first, a word that sounds like distance, like disconnection, like loss. That word is detachment. We hear it and we flinch. We associate it with giving up, with not caring, with walking away. We imagine empty rooms, silent phones, fading memories. But what if detachment isn't what we think it is? What if it's not the absence of love, but the beginning of freedom? You've spent your whole life holding on to people, titles, opinions, plans, expectations. You cling to them like lifelines, because they make you feel grounded. They give you a sense of identity, a sense of control. But in trying to hold everything together, you never noticed what was slipping through your fingers, yourself. Detachment isn't abandonment. It isn't isolation. It's not about shutting the world out. It's about no longer letting the world define who you are. You see, attachment isn't always about love. Sometimes it's about fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being seen. Fear of losing what you've convinced yourself you need. And in that fear, you start to build cages. You attach your happiness to people, your worth to achievements, your identity to how others treat you. And that's when your peace becomes fragile. If someone leaves, you shatter. If something fails, you break. If the plan changes, you panic. Because your entire sense of self is built on things that were never meant to carry it. And every time they shake, you fall with them. That's why detachment is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the ability to stand in the storm without becoming it. To feel deeply without drowning. To care without collapsing. To love without losing yourself in the process. Detachment is not about being less human. It's about being fully present in your humanity without being ruled by it. It means showing up with an open heart, but not tying your worth to someone else's love. It means pursuing your goals with passion, but not basing your value on the outcome. It means being kind, but not letting guilt manipulate your choices. It means releasing the need to be constantly understood, praised, accepted. Because the moment you let go of the need for approval, is the moment you step into your power. The world teaches us to attach, to grip, to own. But real peace comes from learning how to hold everything gently. To love fiercely, but know when to release. To be in the world, but not lost inside it. Detachment is breathing deeply, even when nothing makes sense. It's saying, I don't need to control this to be okay. It's allowing life to unfold, not because you're passive, but because you finally trust yourself enough to know you can handle it. You can walk away from things that drain you. You can set boundaries without feeling guilty. You can let go of the version of you that was created only to survive, and step into the one that was born to live. But to do that, you have to face one thing: the fear underneath it all. Because letting go is scary. It feels like jumping without a net. It feels like silence where there used to be noise. It feels like space, and space can be uncomfortable when you've been crowded by expectations for so long. But here's what you'll find in that space: clarity. You'll see what's real, and what was just filling a void. You'll feel the weight lift from your shoulders. You'll hear your own voice again, after years of everyone else's drowning it out. And that voice, it will guide you home. It will remind you that you don't have to chase love, that you don't have to perform for approval, that you don't have to fear change. Because everything that's meant for you, everything real, will never require you to lose yourself to keep it. Detachment invites you to love without attachment, to experience joy without clinging, to sit with pain without running. It teaches you that peace is not found in controlling the world, but in releasing the belief that you ever had to. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never beg for chains again. It won't happen all at once. Detachment is not a switch. It's a practice, a choice you make every day to return to yourself, to breathe through discomfort, to pause before reacting, to ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this aligned with my truth? And when it's not, you'll walk away, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with peace, because you'll know that letting go is not loss, it's self-respect. You don't have to carry everything. You don't have to fix everyone. You don't have to prove anything. You are allowed to step back, to rest, to release, to reclaim your space in your own life. There is a quiet power in detachment, a steady strength that doesn't shout or show off. It just exists, calm, present, grounded. And when you find it, you'll stop chasing things that were never yours to begin with. You'll stop shrinking for people who never saw you. You'll stop exhausting yourself trying to be everything. You'll just be, and that will be more than enough. The first step is always the hardest, not because it requires the most effort, but because it demands the most honesty. Letting go isn't a dramatic act. It's not slamming doors or cutting people off, or making declarations into the void. No. The real letting go begins quietly. It starts in your mind, in the moment you admit to yourself that you've been holding on too tightly, to people, to plans, to versions of yourself that no longer exist. It's that silent realization that your grip is no longer saving you, it's suffocating you. And so one day, without fanfare or witnesses, you whisper to yourself the truth you've been too afraid to say. I can't keep doing this. That moment is the beginning of everything. But don't expect clarity to come rushing in. Don't expect peace to flood your body the second you let go. The truth is, letting go doesn't feel good at first. It feels like loss, like confusion, like standing in the ruins of everything you thought you needed, and wondering what's left. What's left is you, raw, unedited, unfiltered, and maybe for the first time real. But that reality can feel unbearable in the beginning, because when you stop performing, you start feeling. And feelings that have been buried for years come rushing to the surface. Fear, sadness, loneliness, longing. You might ask yourself, was holding on really that bad? But you already know the answer. Because holding on is what got you here. Exhausted, anxious, disconnected. So no, it wasn't worth it. The first step to letting go is allowing yourself to feel what you've been avoiding. To sit with the discomfort. To breathe through the ache. To look your pain in the eye and say, I see you. I'm not running anymore. And the moment you do that, something incredible begins to happen. You stop being afraid of your feelings. You stop shrinking from your truth. You stop molding yourself to make others comfortable. You begin to unlearn. You unlearn the need to be liked by everyone. You unlearn the urge to explain yourself. You unlearn the belief that your worth is tied to how much you do for others. And in the space where those old beliefs lived, you begin to build something new: self-trust. Self-trust doesn't arrive as a roar. It enters like a whisper. It says, you don't need them to understand. You don't need their permission. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest. Honest with yourself. That maybe the life you've built isn't what you want anymore. That maybe the people around you don't truly see you. That maybe the dream you've been chasing wasn't yours to begin with. That maybe it's time to start over. But here's what they don't tell you about starting over. It's not a reset, it's a return. A return to the parts of you that were never broken. The parts that got buried beneath people-pleasing, perfectionism, and fear. Letting go doesn't take you backward. It takes you home. And home is not a place. It's a feeling. It's the moment you stop apologizing for your existence. It's the moment you look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. It's the moment your soul exhales and whispers, "There you are." That's when everything begins to change. Your decisions become clearer. Your boundaries become firmer. Your energy becomes sacred. You no longer tolerate what drains you. You no longer beg for crumbs of affection. You no longer silence your truth to keep the peace. You begin to live as if you matter. Because you finally believe that you do. And people will notice. Some will applaud your courage. Others will resent your growth. But that's not your burden to carry. You don't owe anyone the version of yourself that makes them comfortable. You only owe yourself the truth. And the truth is, you were never meant to stay small. You were never meant to sacrifice your soul for security. You were never meant to spend your life surviving instead of living. So take that first step, not because it's easy, not because it feels good, but because it's necessary. Necessary for your healing, necessary for your peace, necessary for the life you haven't even dared to imagine yet. And remember, letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally stopped abandoning yourself. It means you chose yourself in a world that keeps asking you to disappear. That's not weakness, that's revolution. Because the first step to letting go isn't the end of your story. It's the start of your becoming. There's a moment in life when the story you've been telling yourself no longer fits. It feels foreign, heavy, like a coat you've outgrown but keep wearing out of habit. The words don't sound like your voice anymore. The plot doesn't reflect your heart. And every chapter you continue to live feels like you're reading from a script someone else wrote for you. That's where the rewriting begins. But rewriting your story doesn't mean erasing the past. It means honoring where you've been. Even if some of those pages were filled with pain, confusion, or silence, it means looking back at the wounds and not seeing failure, but evidence that you survived, that you felt deeply, that you lived through moments that tried to unwrite you. Because before you can write a new story, you must first own the one you've lived. Every scar, every mistake, every quiet decision you made when no one was watching. It all belongs to you, not as shame but as proof. Proof that you've grown, that you've shifted, that you're no longer the same person who once accepted less, who once doubted their worth, who once believed they had to play small just to be safe. Now the pen is back in your hand. And the first word you write might feel shaky. You might not know what comes next. That's okay. Rewriting your story doesn't require a perfect outline. It only requires honesty. It starts with one truth, one declaration, one whisper of, "I want something different now." You don't have to know exactly what you want, but you do need to stop living what you don't want. The story where you keep saying yes to things that break you. The story where you keep making yourself smaller for people who don't know how to handle your fullness. The story where you keep chasing validation instead of alignment. That story ends here. And in its place you get to write a new one. Not one based on survival, but one built on truth. A story where your needs aren't ignored. A story where your voice isn't silenced. A story where your dreams aren't deferred until some future version of you is finally worthy. You're already worthy. You always were. You don't need to earn the right to live a life that feels good. You don't need permission to change directions. You don't need to justify wanting peace, wanting joy, wanting freedom. This is your story, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Maybe that's what scares you. Maybe you followed someone else's script for so long that writing your own feels selfish, or irresponsible, or dangerous. But the truth is, it's necessary. Because if you don't write your story, someone else will. And they'll fill it with characters who don't value you, with scenes that drain you, with endings that don't belong to you. You are not a background character in someone else's plot. You are the author, the narrator, the soul behind every word, and every day you get to write again. You get to choose new habits, new beliefs, new boundaries. You get to rewrite your idea of love, of success, of what it means to be free. You get to take your power back, not through force but through clarity. You don't have to make the story dramatic, or flashy, or impressive. You only have to make it real. Real enough that when you speak, your voice doesn't shake with the weight of pretending. Real enough that when you laugh, it doesn't feel rehearsed. Real enough that when you cry, it's not because you're broken, but because you finally feel safe to feel. That's the kind of story that heals. That's the kind of story that makes you whole. And yes, there will be people who don't understand this new version of you. People who like the old story better. People who preferred you quiet, agreeable, easy to digest. Let them go. Their comfort is not your responsibility. This is your chapter now, and you're allowed to fill it with people who see you, who celebrate your becoming, who don't need you to shrink in order to love you. Let this be the part of the story where everything changes, where you stop chasing the approval of people who were never meant to define you, where you stop settling for things that make your heart heavy, where you start building a life that feels like truth, not performance. Because the moment you start telling your story honestly, something inside you shifts. The weight you've been carrying begins to lift. The fog starts to clear, and you start hearing a sound you haven't heard in a long time. Your own voice. And it's beautiful, not because it's loud, but because it's yours. So take your time, write slowly, write messily, write imperfectly, but write. Even if your hands shake, even if your voice trembles, even if you don't know how the story ends. Because the power isn't in the ending. It's in the fact that you're finally the one holding the pen. So here you are, not where you started, but not quite where you thought you'd be either. Somewhere in between the life you built and the life you long for. It's not the ending. It's not even the middle. It's something more fragile, more powerful. It's the beginning. But this time, you're beginning from a different place. You're not starting over from nothing. You're starting over from truth, from clarity. From scars that have turned into lessons and pain that has turned into power. This is what freedom feels like at first. Strange, unfamiliar, like standing on the edge of something you can't fully see, but you know you need to step into. The old story has ended, the illusion has crumbled, and what's left now is possibility. You don't have to know the whole path. You only need to take the first step. And the first step of freedom doesn't look like a grand gesture. It looks like peace. It looks like waking up and not dreading the day. It looks like saying no, and not needing to explain. It looks like standing in your truth even if your voice shakes. It's not about building something massive. It's about building something honest. Because what's the point of creating a life that looks good but feels hollow? What's the point of chasing goals that aren't even yours? What's the point of being seen if the person they're seeing isn't really you? You don't have to prove anything anymore. You don't have to perform. You don't have to pretend. You just have to be. And that might be the hardest thing you've ever done. Because being yourself, truly yourself, in a world that constantly tells you to change, that takes courage. That takes the kind of strength that doesn't come from muscle or money or mastery. It comes from knowing your worth even when no one else sees it. It comes from being your own validation, your own applause, your own reason. This isn't about selfishness. This is about sovereignty. This is about sovereignty. You are no longer waiting for someone to choose you, love you, save you, or fix you. You're no longer seeking peace in the hands of people who keep dropping it. You're no longer filling your schedule to avoid the silence. Because now you know. The silence is sacred. That's where your real voice speaks. That's where your real answers live. Let this be the part of your story where you come alive again. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped waiting for it to be. Let this be the season where you trust yourself more than your fears. Where you stop needing everyone's approval to move forward. Where you stop giving people the pen to write your life. You're not here to repeat old patterns. You're here to rise. You're not here to survive each day. You're here to feel each moment. You're not here to be tolerated. You're here to be free. And yes, freedom will feel unfamiliar at first. You'll miss the comfort of control. You'll second guess your voice. You'll wonder if it's easier to go back. But don't. Don't go back to the cage just because it feels familiar. Don't settle for the role just because it's been yours for so long. Don't keep carrying the weight just because you've grown used to the pain. You are allowed to outgrow the life you once prayed for. You are allowed to want something deeper now, something richer, something real. And when you begin again, begin softly, begin gently. Begin in a way that feels like home. You don't have to rush. You don't have to shout. You don't have to make it loud to make it matter. You just have to make it true. Make your choices from alignment, not fear. Speak from integrity, not impulse. Move from intention, not insecurity. Start living like your peace is priceless, because it is. Start loving like you're not afraid of loss, because anything you lose by being real was never meant to stay. Start showing up as if you belong, because you do. There's a version of you that the world hasn't seen yet. A version untouched by fear, unburdened by shame, unapologetically free. That version is waiting. Not in the future, not in the someday you keep postponing, but here, in this breath, in this decision, in this moment, right now. You have the power to begin again, and not from pressure or perfection or desperation, but from love, from the kind of love that says, even if no one claps for this part of my story, I'm still going to write it. From the kind of love that says, I won't betray myself to keep the peace anymore. From the kind of love that says, I will no longer be a stranger to my own life. You have carried too many weights for too long. It's time to put them down. You've waited for permission, validation, certainty, but none of that was ever required. All you needed was the courage to choose yourself. So here's your permission. Here's your reminder. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are just beginning.